Today I'm going to share my new Necron Army List 2020. It's coming right up. Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. And if you're new to the channel and you want to keep up to date with all things Necrons, then please subscribe and hit the bell button to turn on all notifications so you don't miss an upload. Okay, so here we go. Today I want to talk about my new 2020 Necron list. Now, over the last 6 months or so, I've been playing my Serge Cron list, as I call it, headed up by the Soraptic and then supporting units. I've also adapted that list to non-Forge World units as well, using the Vault instead of the Soraptic. I've had a lot of good success with that list. It's not the most competitive list out there, but it has a good amount of units with quality shooting and the ability to take mission objectives. Now, of course, playing that list for a good amount of time has also given me the command experience of that list. I know how each unit works with each other in the list and what units have to do what, and that is part and parcel of having a good list. It's not necessarily just the list itself, it's commanding the list on the table. However, 2020 is here and I want a fresh start. I want to build a new list, I want to build a better list, I want to build a more competitive list. Now, of course, if you know me, you know that it's not going to be the standard meta list of 3 Doomsday Arcs and 3 Doom Scythes. I do want to do something a little bit different. Well, it is me, after all. So today I'm going to share my thought process on how I built this new 2020 list. Of course, I'm going to share the list itself, and then you'll see this list in action in some future battle reports. So my aim is to make a competitive, hard-hitting Necron list, but without the usual 3 Doom Scythes, 3 Doomsday Arcs. That was my plan. So a few years ago I went to the Confrontation 3 tournament. That was a bit of a challenge for me regarding making an army list for that event. Necrons were very expensive back then, and we had some restrictions in the tournament that, for me as a casual player, caused me problems. They had some painting restrictions which forced me down the single dynasty route. Also, as a casual player, I didn't really have the correct models to use at a tournament. So, for example, I didn't have any Tomb Blades. When I played casually, I was using my old school destroyers as Tomb Blades. Also, my Tesla Immortals, which I use, are actually old school warriors. They have a totally different gun to the current warriors. I think they stand in quite well. They're actually physically a bit bigger than the warriors as well. However, casual play, that's fine, but in the tournament it wasn't. So the journey of me making an army list for that event was quite challenging. I started off with a full-on assault list. I thought, well, if I can't play the competitive list I want to play, I'll just go for fun and play an assault list. And then I had a massive U-turn on that after getting beat pretty much every game with that list. So I reassessed my list and I came up with the most competitive list that I could under the restrictions that the event put on me, coupled with the fact that Necrons back then were very expensive. Since then we've had 2 chapter approved points reductions, and I thought that I should revisit my Stormcron list and maybe bring it up to date for 2020. Now, of course, this is just the first draft of the list. I'm expecting it to change a little bit as I play it. Now, it's okay doing math hammer, it's okay just taking the best units, but you can't really fine-tune a list until you play games with it, until you play different opponents with it, to be able to command your list on the table and know how each unit works and interacts with each other for that particular list.
Necrons!
Now this list is of course going to ignore those restrictions that I had in the tournament. I don't plan to take this to an event, and if I do take it to an event, well, I will just have to go out and buy and paint some extra models. Actually, I do plan to do a lot of Necron hobby this year. Once my Noise Marines are finished, it's going to be Necrons, Necrons, Necrons. Okay, so on to my new list. Now my previous Stormcron list, where Necrons were quite a bit expensive back then, I could only get an Outrider detachment in that list. I'm going to build this list on the foundations of that list, but now with all the points reductions I'm able to get a battalion detachment. So we're starting off with the Stormcrons as a battalion detachment. Now heading up the Stormcron list, of course, hence the name, is Imitek the Stormlord. Now Imitek had 2 points reduction since I played him last, now just 140 points, and he brings a lot to the table for that. He gives you an extra CP, he has 2 My Will Be Dones for the Sotek Dynasty, and he has the Sotek Warlord trait, Hyperlogical Strategist, which is my personal favourite. He has Caught the Storm, allowing me to do some mortal wounds, and he has a 2+ save and 4+ invulnerable save, making him pretty survivable. My second HQ in the battalion was the Cryptek with the Canoptic Cloak, a trusted HQ, giving me the ability to keep up some of my fast moving units, giving them RP bonuses, and I've given him the Veil of Darkness. Okay, so on to the troops, and I've got 3 squads of Tesla Immortals, taking full advantage of my double My Will Be Done. Now I really would love to have 2 squads of 10 Immortals, but I just don't have the points for that. So it's 1 squad of 10 and 2 squads of 5. The units of 5 will of course sit on objectives. They've got a 24-inch range, 10 shots, and one of those units with My Will Be Done is going to be very useful. The key thing here though is I've got a battalion detachment, which I never had before, so that is awesome. That gives me a good amount of CPs. So in the elite slot we've got the trusted Triarch Stalker, and I've gone for the twin heavy gauze cannon. That gives me a bit of range and a little bit of anti-tank, but of course he's there for the targeting relay to allow me to re-roll the ones on units that target the same thing that he does. That is very useful, especially for some other units that I've got in the list, being that I'm in the Sotek Dynasty. Okay, so the list is shaping up. We've got our foundations ready to go, ready for the key units, and we're now into the fast attack choices, which, as you can see, I've got 2 squads of destroyers heading up the slot. Now of course I can't give extermination protocols to both of these units, only 1, so arguably you could say, well, it's a waste of time having 2, but I view it in a different way, because well, what tends to happen is your destroyers will be targeted turn 1, and well, at least if 1 unit is wiped out, you have another unit, and well, destroyers without extermination protocols can still hurt quite a bit. And I've got the option to potentially put My Will Be Done on the 2nd unit of destroyers. Destroyers are an all-round good unit, and particularly good at taking out Space Marines with more than 1 wound.
Necrons!
So next up is a unit of 8 Tomb Blades, and as you can see I've gone for Tesla on those, giving me the anti-horde ability. Now they all have shield veins and they all have nebula scopes. Now the reason why I've gone for every single model with the same piece of war gear is because of the models that I use. I use my old school destroyer models as Tomb Blades. I still have to paint my Tomb Blades, and those models, well, it's very difficult to distinguish one from the other, so I've decided to go for the same war gear on all of the models. I might potentially change that in the future, but that's how it is at the moment. Also, a little caveat here. I don't actually have enough destroyers at the moment to fill this list because, well, I use my old school destroyers as destroyers rather than Tomb Blades. So at this moment in time I'm going to have to proxy 3 destroyers, but I will be getting some more destroyers in the future. So that gives me some fast moving units with some good guns for both anti-horde and anti-armour, and potentially for taking up vehicles, certainly light vehicles at the same time. However, we do need some other stuff to mix in with this, and of course we're now on to heavy support. So 2 Doomsday Arcs, which were in my first list, and they've come down quite a bit when I was playing them then, and of course now heavy destroyers have come down a tremendous amount, allowing me to squeeze in a squad. Now Doomsday Arcs of course are in most competitive Necron lists. I mean, it's one of those things, you just have to take them. I've just got the 2 there, but supported by my heavy destroyers, a nice little cheap option. And of course with the Triarch Stalkers twin heavy Gauss cannon, it gives me quite a reasonable amount of anti-tank. So I'm covering all bases, and I still have 65 points left over. Now my original list had some Scarab Swarms in, and well, to be fair, they were very useful because you put them up front and they take the smite that comes in on turn 1, or at least some of the smite. Very, very useful. Plus, if you come across an army which doesn't do smite, well, those scarabs have other uses. You can put them on an objective, you can hide them at the bottom of a building, and of course you can use them to bubble wrap, maybe bubble wrapping your Doomsday Arcs. However, my battalion has my fast attack choices all filled up, and I don't have enough points to have another HQ to unlock another detachment. So I've thought long and hard about this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my free command point from Imitate the Stormlord, and I'm going to take an auxiliary detachment for scarabs. So I thought I would go for the Novok Dynasty on those scarabs, giving me that re-roll to hit in the first round of combat, although I probably won't be in combat with these. These really are there to take the first turn smite and mortal wounds. There's 15 wounds there for someone to get through before they can get to the rest of the army. Now arguably I could drop those scarabs and I could make the second unit of immortals bigger. Now that certainly is an option, and I would gain my extra CP on that. However, I think that the scarabs will give me a little bit more breathing space at the beginning of the game. So there you go, that's my new list for 2020, a new Serge Cron list. I am very excited to play this list on the table. I'm looking forward to testing it against some hardcore competitive armies, and my first army I'm going to be facing is the dreaded Thousand Sons. I will be playing Richard from Capitan Morgan's Wargames and his Thousand Sons army, which as yet I've only ever beaten once, and that was just because I got lucky with the mission. So this is definitely going to be a test for the list. Now if you want to see my original tournament journey, I have that all documented in that playlist just there. And if you want to see some of my previous battle reports, why not check out that playlist just there. Beam me up!